The red ribbon lately, old Ute had been in a foul mood. There was a heaviness in his chest that wouldn't go away, ever since someone had broken into his chicken coop and made off with the young hens. And what made it worse was how quietly it had all happened. The coop stood right beside his room. Just a thin wall separated him from it, and from his bedridden younger brother, who lay there day and night, unmoving. Yet not a single noise was heard. No clucking, no scuffling. Even Lou, the ever-alert dog who usually barked at falling leaves, hadn't made a sound that night. The more he thought about it, the more rage boiled up in his belly. Was he cursed? Had he built his house in the wrong place, under some ill-fated constellation for livestock? It had been years since he'd had a chicken to eat during the New Year holidays. Not since his parents passed away, leaving behind a half-living, half-dead younger brother. It had always been something. Sometimes it was the fox, sneaking in at night and leaving behind only tufts of bloody feathers. Once it even dragged the feathers all the way to the floor beneath their bed. Other times it was a thief, bold enough to enter while Ute was working the rice fields. And what use was that damned brother of his? Lying there all day, eyes rolling, mouth twisted into that stupid, crooked smile. Useless. He wouldn't talk, couldn't shout, couldn't even move. If he could talk, maybe the fox would have been scared off by a human voice. If he could walk, maybe the house wouldn't be so vulnerable in broad daylight. But no, he just lay there, staring into space, grinning. Still, Ute knew it wasn't fair to blame him. Maybe he should blame God for bringing into the world a creature so unfinished. The doctors, those foreign-educated men who'd once been friends with the village chief, had a name for it. Something about brain degeneration or neural collapse. Ute couldn't remember. He'd never been to school. Born a tenant farmer, son of tenant farmers. What did he know of such complicated things? All he knew was that every time something bad happened, it happened quietly. Too quietly. And lately it felt like even the air around the house was listening. After gathering his thoughts, old Ute hurried inside, grabbed his machete, and went out to split some bamboo. The landlord's land was rich with it, but for tenant farmers like him, all they could ask for were the soft, pale cores. The outer layers went to the wealthier folk, woven into baskets, winnowing trays, or fish traps. For the rich, bamboo was a material of endless utility, but for the poor, it was something begged and borrowed, stripped to the bone, split thin, and patched into walls. The walls of Ute's home were made entirely of bamboo weave. Stronger spots had a single layer, while the weaker ones had 2 or 3, layered to block the wind and rain. With steady hands, Ute split a bamboo stalk into strips, using the tip of the machete to slice them into fine, pliable threads. He crushed and peeled them apart, threading each piece carefully into a half-finished panel. By sundown, he had finished a makeshift rectangular door, one vertical beam longer than the rest by about 8 inches. No need to waste money on hinges at the market. He'd simply bury the long beam in a bamboo socket sunk deep into the ground, then fasten the top with coconut twine. Just like that, the door could swing back and forth like a millstone. The other day, because there was no back door, Lou, his dog, had snuck inside and eaten half a pound of meat. It was a cruel twist of fate. An old friend from the neighboring village, hearing of Ute's misfortunes with livestock and theft, had gifted him that meat out of pity, and now the dog had dared to devour it. But what baffled Ute most was Lou's behavior. She had never, ever done anything like that. She would hunt lizards, sniff out rats, but never had she touched food left on the kitchen shelf. What possessed her that day? Since his brother Bay grew a little older, the house had grown quieter, lonelier. Children from the neighborhood no longer came by. They didn't like seeing Bay, that strange, pitiful figure with his silent presence and unsettling habits. And truth be told, they had reason to fear him. Bay's skin was pale with a sickly blue hue, and his twisted smile stretched grotesquely across his face. His eyes were the worst part, almost entirely white, with tiny pupils darting in random directions. They seemed to look through you, or maybe not at you at all. And that tongue, unnaturally long, red as raw meat, lolled from his mouth every time he smiled. The children whispered among themselves, "Is that thing really a human tongue? Or something else pretending to be one?" Of course, they only whispered. No one dared speak of it where Oot might hear, but secrets always have a way of slipping through walls. And Oot had heard. Still, he didn't mind. Deep down, he knew. Even he was afraid of Bay sometimes. But what could he do? People are born with their fate, Oot would often say. Bay had been born unlucky, and Oot had been unlucky enough to bear the burden of him. They rarely had meat. Their meals came from the fields. Fish mostly. That comforted Oot somewhat. The canals were teeming. With a few quick lines thrown in, there was always something to eat. But Bay was picky. He ate like a prince born into a poor man's house. 3 bites of rice, a few nibbles of salted fish. He turned his nose up at simple fare. One time Oot hurried out after throwing together a quick fish stew. By the time he came back, Bay had eaten all the fish, but the stew had still been raw, its stink of blood and slime lingering. Bay had devoured it all, and the look in his eyes. It wasn't hunger, it was pleasure. Oot was stunned. He'd spent years trying to cook for Bay, always trying to please him, but nothing ever seemed to satisfy. Bay barely ate, but grew fast. He didn't walk, didn't speak, but his body stretched longer. His scent began to change. A strange odor clung to him now, a faint stink of chicken and duck. But there were no chickens, no ducks, not anymore. The neighbors whispered of their own missing poultry. One after another, their coops emptied. No one knew why. Was it the foxes, the thieves, or something else? They began whispering again. They said Oot's garden was haunted, that something lived there, something that fed on living flesh, and that no fowl could survive under that roof. Oot paid them no mind. He rose early, cooked rice, split the portions, one for himself, one for Bay, and left for the fields until dusk. Only in the evening did he have time to rest. A cup of tea, a sip of rice wine, sleep. But lately, something was wrong with the house. The rats had gone wild. At night, as sleep dragged at his bones, Oot would hear them clattering through his pots and pans. In the morning, his sun-dried fish would be gone, but only the fresh fish, never the dried ones. These were no ordinary rats. He tried to stay up to see them, but they were clever. They knew when he watched. And when exhaustion finally took him, they came. One night, under a bright moon, its light slipped through the bamboo walls, casting pale shadows into the room. Oot, half asleep, thought he saw something. A red ribbon, floating, fluttering. Just there, in the open room, it vanished the moment he opened his eyes. It happened again, and again. He told himself it was a dream, just dreams. Then came the night of the funeral next door. Oot drank a bit too much. Staggering home, he collapsed onto the bed, half beside Bay as always. Sometime after midnight, something brushed his cheek, soft where wet, smooth, like silk. Still drunk, he thought it was Lou, maybe licking his face for attention. But when he opened his eyes, he saw it, the red ribbon, fluttering inches from his nose, 3 fingers wide, swaying, dancing, toying with him. He tried to grab it, but his limbs were heavy, drunk, disobedient. The moment he moved, the ribbon pulled back, disappeared, vanished into the dark, right next to him, next to where Bay lay, staring at him, still, wide awake. Why wasn't the boy asleep? Why was he watching him? And why were Bay's eyes glowing? No, not glowing. They were burning. 2 tiny red orbs, flickering like flames. Oot stared at it in horror, then shouted, his voice raw with panic. "What are you doing, Bay?" In the dead of night, his shout surely rang loud across the fields. Bay flinched, his face twitching with sudden change. The strange gleam in his eyes faded. His lips drooped again, just as they always had. But something else was there now. An odd, childlike look of disappointment, as if he'd been interrupted while enjoying a favorite game. Something's terribly wrong. That boy, no, that thing, he doesn't belong here. He came from somewhere else. somewhere dark that no human should know. Ut thought this as he lay awake until the rooster crowed at dawn. That day, after planting rice, Ut headed straight to his cousin Tom's house in the next village. They had grown up like brothers. There were no secrets between them. "Tom, I'm worried," Ut began, weary and heavy-hearted. "Bay's changing into something I don't recognize. I don't know if I can take care of him anymore." Old Tam looked at his cousin with pity and dread. He'd heard whispers about Bay, terrible stories, but never knew how to bring them up. "I know it's been hard. I don't blame you, but still, he's your blood." Tom hesitated, then fell silent. Ut opened up. He told his cousin everything, every strange thing that had happened. Tom listened for a long time, then finally said, "If you want to understand, you'll have to watch him, closely, quietly. All these years you've been out in the fields. How could you know what happens when you're not home?" Then he disappeared into the house and returned with a chicken, its legs tied together. "You look pale. Take this, make some green bean porridge. That's all I can offer." Ut took the chicken and headed home, but halfway there, the skies turned. Thunder cracked across the horizon. Rain poured down in sheets. The path turned slick and muddy beneath his feet. Lightning lit up the horizon like jagged scars across the sky. He hurried home and tossed the chicken into the coop before sprinting back toward the fields. "If I don't go now, the seedlings will wash away," he thought, running faster. But just before reaching the edge of the field, Ut stopped, not from exhaustion, but from doubt. He remembered Tom's words, "You must watch him." He turned around. The back door came into view through sheets of rain and flickers of lightning. Lou, his dog, didn't run to greet him like usual. Had she wandered off with the neighbor's dog again? Then he heard it, a loud panic squawking from the coop. "Foxes! Again!" Grabbing a stick, Ut rushed forward and shoved open the door. The millstone hinge groaned open, and what he saw froze the breath in his lungs. There it was, the red ribbon, longer than ever, glowing blood red beneath a flash of lightning. The moment the door creaked, it darted, fast, toward the front room. A blur, gone in a blink. In the coop, only a clump of wet feathers soaked in blood remained. Ut ran to the bed. There lay Bay, seemingly asleep. But there, at the corner of his mouth, was a smear of fresh blood. It wasn't the fox. The red ribbon took the chicken. But what is it? And why is Bay's mouth stained red? After that night, Ut became more alert. But strange things began happening to him. The leech bites from the rice fields, harmless to others, became festering wounds on his legs. They wouldn't heal. Yellow pus oozed from them for days, weeks even. No ointment worked. Only thick herbal poultices brought relief. Could it be the ribbon? He wondered. He shook his head. Too absurd. But still, he needed to know. It was now dry season. The harvest was done. Villagers spent their days hunting mice and birds in the fields. Ut caught a few birds and roasted them over a fire. The smell filled the house, but Bay didn't touch a bite. He'd grown gaunt lately, and though Ut felt a pang of guilt, he couldn't deny something was wrong. That afternoon, a neighbor gifted Ut a piece of pork from a freshly butchered pig. Ut tossed it onto a bamboo rack by the kitchen hearth and rushed out to stake his fishing lines. Only a few plots away, he stopped. He remembered the red ribbon. He turned back. The door didn't creak this time. He greased the millstone hinge with soft mud. It opened silently. And there it was, floating in the kitchen. The red ribbon, twisting, dancing, delighted in its solitude. It didn't sense him. Quietly, carefully, step by step, Ut moved in. The January sky was bright, stars glowing like lanterns overhead. Their light slipped through the holes in the old bamboo roof, casting soft beams into the still kitchen. He opened his eyes wide. That thing had haunted his dreams, had taken his chickens, had kept meat from his table for 5 long years. And now, he saw it and froze. Ut's blood turned to ice. It wasn't a ribbon. It was a tongue, a massive red tongue, glistening with slick saliva, covered in tiny quivering taste buds. It slithered across the slab of pork, dragging it backward, vanishing, then returning for more. Back and forth, slurping, smacking, the sound of a child eating hungrily. A tongue! Number impossible. A human tongue couldn't be that long. He estimated over 3 meters long, and that was just what he could see. It wasn't silk, it was flesh. That was a tongue, and it was feeding. Ut's heart thundered. He trembled. Desperately, his hands fumbled in the dark for anything to grab. Anything to fight it. Nothing. Just ashes, warm, useless. The same ashes from his afternoon fire. Run? But Bay is still inside. He lunged, grabbed the grotesque tongue with both hands. It thrashed violently, strength beyond human. It was slick, oily, impossible to grip. It flung Ut backward, slamming him into the hearth. But he held on. Ash stuck to his hands, smearing over the tongue's pulsing flesh. In the bedroom, Bay cried out, garbled sounds thrashing wildly. Lou howled from outside, a sound not of rage but of terror. Ut didn't care. He gripped harder. The tongue whipped left, right, dragging him toward the bedroom. Bay convulsed. Then, in the starlight filtering through the broken roof, Ut saw him, saw its true form. It wasn't Bay anymore. It was something else. A demon, its mouth wide open, tongue coiling like a serpent, slathered in saliva, now wrapping itself around Ut's neck. Slick, burning, violent. It caressed his face with putrid tenderness, suffocating, choking. Blinded by terror, Ut reached under the bed and seized his machete. He swung. Bong! Clang! Drums and gongs echoed across the quiet village. People shouted, screamed. Fire! Fire! The blaze towered into the sky, a monstrous pillar of flame. Neighbors came running with palm fronds and buckets, trying to beat back the inferno. But by the time they arrived, Ut's home was gone. Ashes, cinders, nothing left but a burnt machete and shards of broken clay bowls. No one knew what had happened to the two brothers. Rumors flew, fear took root. But only one man ever stayed silent, Old Tom. He never spoke of it again, not because he didn't know, but because some truths, some horrors, are better left untold. Because if he hadn't said anything that day, we wouldn't have this story to fear tonight.